Welcome to Patent Pending. I'm your host, Gabriel Moncau. Today I'm joined at the top left by Spencer Waldshan, one of the original TSA video game design members. 5 years ago, we peer pressured him into doing sound effects and music for our games, and he's been in that purgatory ever since. He also more recently decided to extend his suffering by joining 3D animation and Sci-Viz. At the top right, we have Matthew Mulhall, renowned D&D dungeon master, also original TSA video game design member, and Magic the Gathering semi-pro, at least in my heart. At the bottom left, we have Issa Arabia, future TSA video game design artist, Animal Crossing enthusiast, and most known for calling people gamers. And finally, last but certainly not least, at the bottom right, we have Chase O'Brien, established TSA video game design artist and programmer, future co-president of TSA, and Lego connoisseur. How you guys doing today?
Like a little initiative.
Ah, yes, there you go, Matt. That's the iconic line.
Lean into the character this wonderful character you've spelled out for me.
I mean, I figured you'd appreciate that character. Hey, everybody gets 3 things I say about them, all right? That's just how this works. So, all right, let's just jump right into it then. So the first thing that I was going to bring up, and it's very broad, so you can take it wherever you want, was what got you guys into playing games? Like, have they always been an important part of your life? And when did you sort of realize that you might have been interested in making them as well? Was there a certain game that inspired you, or a person, or an idea, a concept? When did that all kind of start?
Well, I know for me, the first game I ever played was when I was 4 years old. My cousins gave me as like a birthday gift or something like that. I think it was a birthday. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was. But I got a Game Boy Advance with Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. And I had no idea how to play them because I was literally 4. But those were my first video games, and I've basically been playing video games my whole life. And so I guess like there was always kind of a want to make the video games, but it really wasn't until like middle school when we were all at because we all joined the I team. Remember that?
The days.
Basically like TSA, but not. But also it was because we were all there, and they handed out like the pamphlets for TSA, and we were like reading it through, and we were like, oh, like this is interesting. What do we want to do? And we saw the video game thing, and we were like, oh, this is something that could be interesting. I think we all kind of had desires to make games at some point. I think Gabe and Derek had their little experiment the year prior, but I think that's when it really started, that 8th grade.
I mean, if we're going to talk first game, I don't know. It depends on what you count as a game, because I guess the first system I had was. You guys ever had like one of those like leapfrog things where it's like all like educational?
Yes. Yeah, I had that.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it started for me. And then the first game I ever beat was. God, I forget which. I don't know. It was either Mario Kart Wii or New Super Mario Brothers Wii. And that like is kind of what got me into gaming. Like I'm one of those people who like, oh, I jumped on the Wii. I mean, I probably would have been in on the GameCube, but I was just, I was too young. It was out before I was born, and by the time I was able to like comprehend things, it was, kind of past its prime. But we did end up getting a Wii because everyone had a Wii back in 2006, 2007. And then I guess
sorry, not everyone.
Sorry, you were left out. You should have had a Wii.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
I have a Wii. Yeah. Almost counts.
That's worth less. Really. That's like negative points.
Doesn't.
It's like.
To be fair, it does everything the Wii can do. So at this point.
Yeah, see, except the Wii U was made. Nintendo literally just like when they dropped Mario Maker on the Switch, that was the final nail in the coffin of okay, the Wii. But as far as making them goes, it started. I did a summer camp at Young at Art. I think going into 5th grade, where you air quote make games air quote, and by air quote make games air quote, I mean you would draw assets and use them on an app that lets you make generic platformer, where you can set the enemy's health and you can draw the level, and that's it. That's everything. That's the thing. That's how you make games, quote unquote. And I remember, actually I don't have it on me, But if I dug deep enough through my archives, I could probably find it. This game, you were this dog, and you were an astronaut, and you like went through space, but it was like dog space, so the planets were like bones and stuff. And you fought evil space dogs. So that was technically the first game I ever made. And then I was kind of quiet on it for a couple of years, obviously because it was something I did like in a couple of days. And then I'd always kind of wanted to come back to it. Actually, before I think it was 8th grade, when we were doing all the TSA stuff, we tried getting a team together on this campus, and it didn't really work because we all realized that none of us knew what the hell we were doing. So and then
such the rise of PC Boca video game design.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is you guys are here today because of our general incompetence and lack of willingness to learn.
I mean, we would have had a 1 year slower start probably, but that's
to be fair. And then when I got to high school, I'm like, oh great, video game. And then I joined. I'm like, wow, these people actually know what they're doing, which is cool because that means I don't have to learn. I just have to like
actually know what they're doing.
Well, you knew more than I did.
It's a pretty low bar at that point.
Yes, but you are above the low bar nonetheless, I guess.
We successfully did not trip on the bar.
It's true.
I guess that's one way of putting it.
No offense, because I don't know who else we're talking about, so I'll just cover my bases now.
Okay, I can go. Okay,
Sure.
so
Sorry.
I guess my first video game was like a leapfrog thing, but I didn't even think of that until Chase said it. But like I wasn't allowed to have like a DS or anything as a kid, so like all my friends always had one and I was so jealous. And my first like real console was a Wii, and I really only had one game. I only had Kirby's Return to Dreamland and like Just Dance, but like Just Dance doesn't really count. I don't really count it. So yeah, Kirby's Return to Dreamland was like my first game, and yeah, I only really started playing games because I had a crush on this kid on my bus, and he would like play Minecraft every day, and I thought he was like the coolest person ever. So that's how I became interested in them. But I really liked them.
You mentioned that. I can't believe I didn't talk about Minecraft.
Yeah.
Perhaps because then
everybody's had their
Minecraft
games.
Some things go understood, Chase. Some things need not be named.
That's fair, I guess.
What about you, Matt? How'd you start off?
So strangely, I'm the only one whose first console wasn't a Nintendo console because my dad owned the original Xbox. So I had that in the house growing up, and so I was the household king of Monkey Ball, let me tell you. So that was my first console. I mean, that was just in the house as long as I ever remember. It lived in my room for a while, which is cool. And then at some point for Christmas, when I was like 8, maybe, I don't know, when I was young, my cousins got me a DS with Pokemon Diamond, Pokemon Leaf Green. And thus began Pokemon, which was the basically all of the video game content I consumed that I owned for an extended period of time. Good. Never beat that version of Diamond. I lost it in a car. I got another version of Diamond. Also lost that one in a car. So great track record with the Sinnoh region. Then yeah. So I had the DS for a while, which was my system, and then the Xbox. And at this point, I have too many. But sitting across the room is the slate of current generation consoles. So I don't know. It just kind of evolved from playing this one thing. I'm like, this is cool. What else? And then I saw something about Gary's Mod one day, and someone's like, "You Gary's Mod on your computer?" And I was like, "Huh, Steam." And that has unraveled into let's take a look real quick.
I remember, yeah, that was in like 6th grade
Yeah.
when we jumped on the Gmod
on the Steam train. No.
Source games are like the PC gaming gatekeepers.
Yeah. I have 189 games in my Steam library. Some amount of them are free. An amount that I should probably not admit aren't. I don't know. It's just kind of become a thing that I've always done and enjoyed as a pastime. And then making games was just like you came to me as like, hey, we're doing this thing. You want to try it? And I'm like, sure. Sounds like fun. we huddled around a table in the library, and I was like, GarageBand's cool. Made some music, and my role became less and less defined as years go on, obviously. But it's, I don't know, it's just been, it's that thing where you know, it's like you get to consume the content, and it's like, why wouldn't you, or not why wouldn't you, but it seemed like a fun thing to take a chance to give back and like take what you've seen and what you like and be like, let's make our own version of that, or combining things we like, and etc., which is the pitch that everyone always hears and says, but accurate. I don't know, and it's just kind of how I ended up here.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of us had at least somewhat similar experiences in one way or another through Minecraft or through Pokemon. I think those are some classics that everybody sort of went through. But
yeah, I might get a lot of crap for this. I have not played a single Pokemon game. Not
okay. I guess we're gonna have to find a new guest for this episode.
Right,
not acceptable.
It's actually funny enough. I was actually given a copy of, I forget if it was black or white. It was one of those, and it was literally just sealed, sitting in my games collection for like 4 years, and eventually I donated it. And I don't know why, just because like, I don't know, just nothing. I don't know why I've never gotten.
Choose your words carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know why I've never gotten into Pokemon. Maybe I'll try. Like I said, if Sword and Shield go on sale, which they won't because they're Nintendo games, but
Still,
maybe.
still a good pickup even for the price.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are some of the games that like got us started and definitely changed how we play. But do you guys think that there are specific genres or like specific games that changed like the gaming industry as a whole, like how people thought about making games or influenced a lot of them afterward? And I have a feeling we're all going to come to the same one at the start, but we'll see.
Well, there's the big one. The big one is
it Minecraft?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You know, so it starts with an M.
Ends in
and then ends with
Minecraft.
the
And then with
Minecraft.
How about Metroid and Castlevania? They named a genre after them.
Yeah, there's
That's
that. Like, there's a lot. There's a
Either
lot
which I've played.
of old games. If you actually like look, old games are like really funny because back then no one really like knew what a game should be.
These things we can do.
And so they just kind of like messed around with a ton of shit. So like all of those like, you know, old arcade games or old NES games, they're all pretty trash, but they're really interesting to look at because, you know, it's just the devs being like, what if we did this or what if we did that?
I don't think they're necessarily all trash, but I think one thing obviously, I think one thing that hadn't been established well was difficulty. People didn't know how to balance a game properly, which led to some games being brain dead and other games being, for all practical purposes, impossible.
Still difficult to this day, I think.
I think, at least for me, like, it's gonna sound cliche to be like, oh my god, Super Mario Brothers is the game that changed the industry, but Super Mario Brothers is the game that changed the gaming industry. At least, like, looking at it in retrospect, and I think you can see that, which is another game, I guess if you want to talk about modern stuff. There's a reason in Mario Maker, as annoying as it is, everyone just makes 1-1 over and over, which, like I said, is very irritating from a playing perspective, but it's very interesting. There's a lot of stuff out there. I don't know how much you guys have seen. There's a lot of analysis of like Mario Bros. 1-1 as the pinnacle of game design, considering that it was produced in 1985 when there were basically no regulations or guidelines whatsoever. Which, I mean, obviously it's thought like 1-1 is not the greatest video game level ever created, in any sense. But I think it is so iconic, and it did so much to establish, the principles. And the way that Nintendo designs Mario games is actually one of the things that got me into game design, is that the whole idea of presenting a concept and letting people explore it and taking it in different directions without it ever being too overwhelming, ended up being a really big defining thing for platformers, at least the early 90s. And then, and then Mario 64 came out, and it was the first real 3D platformer, and that again, I think, is another one of those games that just totally, changed the industry. Obviously, that generation, the Nintendo 64, PlayStation generation was huge, in terms of technological advancement, but I think also from a game design perspective, because a lot of early games were really limited. People are shocked when you say that. I believe NES games, the average size is about 40 kilobytes, which is so indescribably small.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I believe it's like
You can make text files larger than that.
right,
Yeah.
like
That's
crazy.
not code, like normal
Right.
text files.
no, like literally, if you wrote an essay on a WordPad document, it would probably be larger than your typical NES game. There's a lot of really cool things about how they manage the sprite sheets and sprites and image stacking and audio and all that stuff. And honestly, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hop out pretty soon. But one other game which I'd like to shout out before I leave, which was really, really influential for its specific genre, was Doom, from 1993. Because that's really like the first really big first-person shooter. Because without Doom, you wouldn't have stuff like Quake. You wouldn't have eventually Call of Duty. You wouldn't have CS:GO. You wouldn't really have any first-person shooter in the way that we know it. It was just people didn't realize people didn't really know what you could do with that sort of style. Like the whole first-person style was pretty new to video games. And what's really impressive about Doom is it's also all it's pretty much like 2D. It's all like sprites, in this 3D environment. And that was really, that was pretty eye-opening to a lot of people. It's like, oh wow, you can actually run around in this environment and do things, or shoot demons. So that's also another hugely influential game.
Doom was the first, right? First FPS?
I don't know if it was the first, but I think it was the
First well executed?
Really influential one.
I'm sure there were probably prototypes and other small things, but if you ask not anyone, what the first FPS
with the basic
is,
level of knowledge,
right? They would.
I think it is considered the first.
The consensus
Somewhere
would be
around there.
Doom.
The first one,
Maybe Wolfenstein is somewhere in there.
yeah. The first one was Wolfenstein, but it was made by the same company.
Okay.
Yeah, Wolfenstein
Doom was just the one
1992. So Doom came after Wolfenstein, but Doom was the one that kind of took off, and then Wolfenstein was followed by that. But
I mean, Wolfenstein was also all about killing Nazis, wasn't it?
yeah.
So that probably I can understand why that may not have had as good of legs as people just being like, oh, just killing people, even though they're Nazis. They're like, oh, they're demons. That's better.
The final boss of that game is.
I guess it's
Hitler.
better.
Yep. I mean,
Hitler.
It's more marketable, probably.
Why not?
that's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying like shooting Nazis is a bad idea. I'm like, I'll take no stance
It's
on
certainly
that
a lot
statement.
easier to introduce the world to a new type of game in that way.
Yeah,
Especially because the
and
industry wasn't quite there yet.
And pick a topic that's not people.
Right.
If you're destroying evil, even though you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Literal embodiment of, not just an
I
expression.
mean, there are demons in Doom.
I'm gonna take a really harsh stance and say I'll include the Nazis on evil, but real wild stance. But
No, Matt.
the literal embodiment as opposed to an example of.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's certainly interesting.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna check out now.
Yeah.
I'll probably be back in 15, 20 minutes. The exam is going to be really short. So see you around.
Good luck. Feel no need to rush.
Were you going to say something else, Matt?
I don't remember what the statement was. Someone made some. I think it was Chase said something about how original games were kind of weird. Or maybe it was Spencer. Yeah, about
Spencer
arcade
said
games.
that.
And I was just thinking. That's why I messaged in the chat. I'm thinking what did the guy have to be on to be like? Okay, we got this yellow circle, and it's going to open up and it's going to close and it's going to run around a maze.
Oh
It's
yeah.
gonna swallow these dots. Okay, and you see that's too boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some ghosts. and the
Yeah.
ghosts.
They
It's
change
like-
color too.
They don't change color. There are just 4 of them that are different colors.
Well, do they not
have names.
change color? When you
Well,
get
they
the big
change
dot,
color.
Turn blue.
when you
When
get the big dot, they
dot,
change color.
You get the big dot,
Well,
they
sure,
change
yeah,
color.
that's
And
the
then
thing.
Come
You
on,
see these
man.
dots,
There's
and then-
tactical depth.
But it's like if you get all these small dots, and then there's a bigger dot, and if you eat the bigger dot, you can eat ghosts. It's like,
Otherwise, they eat you.
whew. and occasionally you'll find fruit.
Sometimes.
Those give you points.
Maniac
It is, right?
had
So,
this
so,
idea.
so we got these big red beams, right? Right? And you're this dude. You're a man who jumps. Let's call him Jump Man, right?
Yes.
And there's this big monkey, and he's just gonna throw barrels down the red beams. And
Found
you
it
jump
down a
over the
construction
barrel.
site.
Yeah, yeah. There's also some ladders in there. Also, there's like sentient like fire beings as well. Just roll with it.
That's
You can also get
certainly
this
weird.
hammer, which will instantly destroy everything in your path. Trust me, it's fine.
Obviously.
I don't know. I guess
Because-
maybe we're being a little too critical, but then again,
And
you
because-
also
Well,
I
it's
guess
just
it's-
fun to explain it like
yeah.
it's deadpan. Like, this is what it is. Think about this. It's
Right.
like, let me swing a hammer.
That is
Oh, does
interesting,
it-
though. I think part of it has to be attributed to like the industry was very different. Like nowadays, there's a lot more pressure in pandering to what people want rather than just developer freedom. And also, the
Well,
games had to be a lot simpler.
There was, yeah,
then. And
there
drugs.
really
There are
was
probably drugs involved. Too.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what would be really fun? Like, let's say you're a frog, and you really need to get across the street.
Yeah,
One of the most
yeah, yeah.
famous video games of all time is about a frog getting to the other side of the street.
Well, and
Yeah.
then but
Who's
then
like-
there are some that make
like-
sense. Like you look at Galaga and Space Invaders, and you're like, yeah, I get that. You're a spaceship. There are aliens.
Even Pong.
Shoot the bad aliens.
Oh, sure. I mean, some of them make perfect sense. I mean, it's like imagine playing table tennis, except the ball never falls. It just goes in a straight line. Pong.
Yeah,
There you go.
Pong.
Um,
And eventually,
don't know.
screensavers.
it's just I don't know. It's just kind of fun to, at least amusing to put it in very basic terms. It's like obviously it's like Pong. Sure, makes sense. It's supposed to be like table tennis, and you're like, if you were playing table tennis and you hit the ball and it went like this,
That would be kind of worrying. wouldn't it?
it's like it's an amusing it's an amusing thing to think about it. Like, yeah, like what is Pac-Man?
It's a-
Why
it's a
do we
thing.
want this frog to get to the other side of the street?
Surprisingly merchandisable though. All these things.
Right? Like it's
Like
just,
it kind of works out. No, but that is
Yeah.
interesting. They definitely had a lot more. I mean, maybe
Who
not
put the monkey in
creativity,
the
but
ball.
More outlets for it. The monkey in the
Monkey
ball.
in the ball. I made a monkey ball reference earlier. I was just coming back to it.
No,
Okay, fair
I-
enough.
all
Oh,
good.
that okay. I never really did Monkey Ball. I'm not gonna lie. I think I had it on the Wii or something, and it was terrible. Anyway,
I only knew
Six games.
I only knew the Monkey Ball dude because he was in Sonic Team Racing.
Okay, sure.
I'm like, what is this
Fair
stupid
enough.
monkey doing in this Sonic game?
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of characters that don't make any sense in Sonic.
No,
Team
but
Racing.
actually, it's weird. I didn't play Monkey Ball, but I did. You guys won't know this game. But it was called Marble Saga. It was by I forget somebody. Hudson Soft worked on it. Hudson worked on it.
I
And
think I
somebody else.
may know what that is.
Maybe it was from Konami or someone. I don't know. But that was another one of those games. And there was also, for whatever reason, because this was the Wii, of course. It also had this god awful motion control scheme where you could play on your Wii balance board.
riveting. Yeah, that sounds great. I take it you didn't play many of these games, Issa? Miss Animal Crossing enthusiast over there?
I did want to say something, but other people are talking, so I didn't want
Go ahead.
to interrupt. Okay, so what Gabe was saying about like how games nowadays pander to what everyone wants, like I haven't played a lot of older games. Like I've played a few, most of them Pokemon games, like, and I just think that older games like have a lot more like soul and like I don't know, like games like Undertale, you just play them and I feel like you are like seeing into like the mind of the person that made it instead of like you play Breath of the Wild and it's like what you make out of the experience. And it's like I don't know, I just feel like it's like a different experience to play like an older game.
I just want to point something out real quick for the listeners and for our sake. Undertale came out in 2015.
No, I didn't mean Undertale is an older game.
Ah, those
understand.
older games like Undertale.
I understand for people
That's
who may
not
not.
what I meant.
No. I'm also
That's
again.
not what I meant.
Yeah, that
I'm-
really
I'm
old
taking-
game Undertale.
That's
I'm
funny.
taking a
that-
moment. I'm taking
I
a
just-
moment.
Oh.
I'm making a joke, but also for people who may not know and who have only ever seen pictures, it is a recent game. For those,
It
for
did
the,
not
for the.
mean that.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just making an amusing
Yeah.
note at an amusing time, just because it's funny.
No, but we get what you mean, though. It has that feel to
I
it.
didn't mean.
I understand.
Okay.
Well, that also, I mean, gets into
just saw my
the, if you want to get
opportunity,
into the whole,
so I took
indie versus AAA, which obviously is its own discussion. I actually, honestly, I need to play more indie games, but then again, I am, as I like to define myself, I'm a Switch bitch. That is the only console that I currently, well, I still have a Wii, and that's like the console I mainly play on. I never really got into computer gaming. My Steam library has two. I have 2 games on Steam.
Do we want? Hold on. Does the room want to guess what they are?
Two
Should we take a
games
guess?
on Switch, you
Two
said?
I have
games
2
on
games
Steam.
on Steam.
On Steam.
Can you give us what are either of them paid?
Yes, they are both paid.
Okay.
I will say one of
them's-
them is I have enormous regrets about buying.
Okay, that one's not Gmod, but I bet the other
GTA
one
5.
is.
I don't know.
Nah.
Not about regrets of buying, but
No.
I don't feel like he's the type of guy to play it, and everybody owns that
No,
game.
I
the
don't
game
know.
I own that I like is Golf with Your Friends, and the game I own that
Oh,
I regret
solid.
paying $60 for is Roller Coaster Tycoon World.
Oh, that's
What?
fair.
Roller Coaster
Because-
Tycoon is solid.
No,
I
no,
can
no, no,
understand
no.
not wanting to pay that
Hold on.
much.
I love Roller Coaster. Let me get this started. So, actually, fun fact. Before like all of this, like back in my Wii days, I got for Christmas Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, like on disc. Like, I physically had to put the disc into my computer to play RCT.
Oh, that's lovely.
And
I have
loved that
SimCity
game.
on disc.
And then obviously it took forever. Like RCT World took like 10 years, or I mean, it was like 8. It was a long time. Whatever. So I got it. It was cool. I bought it, and then it turns out the game sucked. Everyone hated on it, and like Planet Coaster and like all of these other games were like infinitely better. I specifically mean Planet Coaster, and like I don't know. I literally played RCT World like once, and like that was it. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to find RCT 3. It might be gone, but that was another one of those games that it's easy for me to forget about, but I think did a lot. Especially because I've always been a big roller coaster guy, and there's actually also I have this app on my iPad that you can build roller coasters with.
Aw, cute.
I was decent at it.
Esports ready.
Yeah, no.
No, but that's
The iPhone
definitely
is the
cool.
best the iPhone is the best console. Don't at me.
Yeah, for sure. No, I was definitely big into those Tycoon games for a while. I mean, I played so much SimCity, which doesn't quite count as Tycoon, but it was like my gateway into like that like management world, which Tycoon certainly falls under, I think. But that's an interesting interesting segue into the other topic that I wanted to talk about, which is, do you think of any? Can you think of any games or genres that you feel like haven't been thoroughly explored yet? Like things that people haven't really tried, or that people have tried but have done so very poorly? Like, are there any games that you feel like could have been really good in concept, but the execution was poor, for example?
Oh, I think there's a very long list of those games that I don't have off the top of my head.
Wow.
there's a very long list of things that people tried and didn't quite land.
I mean, I have some personal disappointments. I think the one that comes most immediately to mind is Super Mario Party. That was released on Switch, I think 2 years ago, and Nintendo basically forgot that it existed. After the absolute disaster that were Mario Parties 9 and 10, where some dude's like, okay, it's Mario Party, but let's just put everyone in the same car and
Well, they fixed
ruin
that
the
in the one-
entire game.
I thought
That's
they
what
did
I'm
that
saying.
in 9 and then fixed it in 10.
No, they ain't fixed it in 10. In 10, no, everyone just likes 10 because 10 is when they added Bowser, and everyone would just fight over who gets to be Bowser,
right.
because that was way more fun than playing in the stupid car.
That's right. I forgot.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't
so
own. Yeah, I didn't own
Super-
either of them. So
yeah. No, I didn't. 'Cause I didn't have a Wii U, but I played with friends. But then Super Mario Party, I saw it. I'm like, yes, like back like as somebody who grew up on Mario Party 8 on the Wii, like it was a return to form. I know people like kind of don't really like Mario Party 8, but that's what I grew up with, and that's what I knew Mario Party as. And then I was kind of disappointed. It wasn't a bad game. It was certainly more of a return to form, but the boards were small, and I don't
it's
know.
just
Like
the
it
scale.
just never.
It's scaled down.
Yeah.
It feels like
And
an
then-
intro level game.
Right. Like
Mario
I
Party.
felt like it's like, oh, like this is like what you start with, and I felt like there should have been more to that game. There just wasn't. It made me kind of sad. It was also annoying because I didn't pay $60 for it. I got them as a gift. It also came with a set of Joy-Cons. So it was $100 for the game and the Joy-Cons. So the way I think about it is, I only paid. Well, I didn't pay, but somebody only paid $20 for this game, which feels more right to me. In hindsight, I don't know. I guess it was just. It's probably not the token example. what you're asking about. That's more of a personal disappointment.
No, I get that. I want to throw two names in there, actually. One of which I think is not a disappointment at all, but it's an idea that was well executed, but very other people have done, or at the very least done well. Rocket League. Not only is it a really fun game and it's a really cool idea, but it also works really well as an esport. Like, it's really easy to watch, and there's a high skill ceiling to it, and I feel like it's just really easy to get into, and it's an incredibly fun game to play. Very few people have done stuff like that. I feel like people are more willing to just pump out, I don't know, FIFA 20, FIFA 21, FIFA 22, reskins one after another, rather than try something new or original like that.
I also like that Rocket League serves kind of, not sorry to short
Yeah,
tangent,
good.
that it serves as an example of what I was saying with like analyzing what old games are. It's like a modern example to a lesser degree, but it's like, what if we had a soccer game, but they were in cars? And
Yeah.
those cars had
Cars
rockets.
and the cars played soccer.
It's such a insane thought to have, and then you look at it and you're like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And super fun. It's like, I don't know. Kind of.
No, that's awesome. And the other game that I was also going to throw in there, which is much more on the disappointment end, but I think people, it gets way too much trash. It's one of those kind of games that was really hyped up and had a lot of potential, but then because it failed to deliver right away, people threw it in the trash can and never looked at it again and treated it like a failed idea as opposed to failed execution. And I think you can guess it, Matt. Are you ready?
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky! There it
did I
is! No Man's Sky, I mean, it was never going to live up to the hype, let's be honest. There were a lot more problems with it than can be simplified in a simple... I mean, we could have a podcast just about that. An entire episode just on No Man's Sky. Hey, No Man's Sky... Well, okay.
We shouldn't talk about it for 2 hours. It's just going to get heated.
Yeah, that's for sure. But all I will say is that I think it had a lot of potential, and I think that now it's a pretty good game, but because it failed to deliver upon it immediately, everybody threw the idea in the trash can like, oh, they could never, actually pull that off. But they kind of have. It's like, it just, under different circumstances, that kind of game could be really interesting in the industry.
I was going to say that I haven't played No Man's Sky because I don't own PlayStation or whatever the heck.
On PC.
Did it come out on PC or
It's on PC.
PC?
It
Okay,
came out
well,
simultaneously on PC.
Okay, I also don't play I don't play computer games except for Minecraft. But like I said, yeah, that's what I read. Like I've been reading a lot of stuff where people have been recently praising it for coming back, almost in the same way that like Star Wars Battlefront 2 did. Obviously, it's microtransactions. It's its own. Yeah, no. Like I'm glad for it, but I agree that I think a lot of people dismissed it straight on because it wasn't what they wanted it to be, and I feel like like honestly, like props to the developers because they easily could have just thrown in the towel and be like, oh well, I guess that's it. That's your game. There you go. Have fun, everybody. But they didn't do that, and the temptation to do that can be really easy. Especially with the environment. It's kind of where the environment is today.
No, that's interesting for sure. I think we're almost tiptoeing the line into talking about games that are like they never made it like really big. They never topped the Steam charts or anything like that, but they I think deserve more recognition than they should get because they did do something original, or at the very least they executed it well. So that could definitely be something to get into as well. I think one that has to get a shout in that category, especially under recent developments. Let's see, Matt, what do you got?
I don't know. It's not recent, so I don't know what you're going to say.
Never mind. Terraria with its 1.4 release at Journey's End.
Everyone's hyped about that.
Exactly. No.
Are you kidding?
Now it's not about people that like let me put it this way. Yes, people are hyped about it, but it's people that play indie games that are hyped about it. It never got mainstream, I feel like.
Okay, well,
Do you
all
disagree?
my friends are hyped about it.
They
I mean,
all play
I
indie
don't.
games.
Well, no. No.
Like, let me put it this
Well,
way. In
my
terms of
friends-
quality of
not
what it's
my
done, it
friends.
rivals Minecraft in my opinion. It's just a different kind of game.
I haven't played it, but like I don't know. I just feel like all my friends are talking about it. So if you say like I don't know, when you said no one's recognizing it, like I don't know. My friends have at least.
I think he meant more that before now it didn't get the recognition that it probably deserved.
Right. The game has been a very good game for a very long time. It's just like with Journey's End, it really brought it all together in a way that I think people never saw Terraria in that light. Like they all thought of it as like an interesting game, but it was almost at the same level. Like let me put it this way. I think it's absurd to put Terraria at the level of Starbound. I think Starbound's a good game, but I think Starbound, even though it like superficially might look similar to Terraria, plays completely differently and doesn't have nearly as much polish as Terraria does. But I feel like people always saw it in the same light.
I can't speak for either. I played Starbound, but never far. And I only briefly played Terraria. Gabe, I think we played it for like 30 minutes ever.
28 hours on me, but with like 30 minutes on you, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I only played it with you, and we played it for like half an hour, and then I had to go, and I was just like, I don't get it. So I'll have to revisit that. What I was leaning in to say, and was a game you gifted me a long time ago. I gave a short chance, didn't give enough of a chance, and have circled back on now. Darkest Dungeon. Because I watched a video. I watched a video about from this a group called Loading Ready Run, based out of Canada. I don't know. It's worth a look, I think. But they have a show called Talking Simulator, where they just play a game, talk about a game. And so one of the episodes about Darkest Dungeon, and he kind of explained what the game does and why it does it so well. And I'll not go on a diatribe here. Essentially, the game is very good at it. There's a lot, and it's a difficult game, and it throws a lot of stuff at you, and a lot of stuff goes wrong immediately, and you're gonna lose, and your characters are gonna die, and they're permanently dead, etc. But the game, it only throws it. It explains what's going on in small enough pieces that you can pick up, and it's not actually overwhelming, even though it might seem like it. And then it gives you every opportunity to screw yourself over. It gives you every opportunity to go, maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe I should. I don't know. The writing in it is now that I've watched the video and gone back I think is very good, and it kind of everything that is said has meaning and has purpose, and it's there for a reason. Nothing is extraneous. Every voice line from the narrator who's narrating everything you're doing is some sort of hint or suggestion in some way, like various things. But it's a game that doesn't, like Dark Souls, you have to be okay with dying. Losing is not the end. It's really isn't at all, because you have to essentially the game is you keep losing until you don't. You eventually just stop losing, and that's when you push on.
It is a notoriously difficult game, I feel like, Darkest Dungeon.
But at least with like a small primer that I had from it, I found it not nearly as daunting. It's like, but the best experience of it is going into it, and the whole point is you feel like, you're juggling a bunch of things you can't control. Like never mind. I won't go into specifics, but I think it's definitely should be in that. I don't know how. I know it's been reviewed excellently. I don't know how well known it is. I think it should be, my opinion, and some other people's. But.
I feel like our other two remaining guests after Spencer's dip play like 5 games.
It's not that I don't play. It's just that like a lot of my games are, like I said, as a big Nintendo person, a lot of the games I play are very mainstream. Yeah. And I've just never gone out of my way.
It's ridiculous.
No, Nintendo. It's almost unfair how consistently good Nintendo stuff is. But they get the recognition for it, and I don't know. I certainly would like to get more in the indie gaming scene, but like I said, my general, like I said, I'm not a big PC guy. For as far as gaming goes, I can't run good games on my PC. Because it's kind of terrible.
Jace, you should get Dead Cells on Switch.
Dead Cells is a good game too.
Dead Cells is very good. My opinion. Yeah. Many others' opinions, but
I'll get into it.
For me, I never really played a lot of games until like last year, and even then, like I have a bunch of games now that I just have not had the chance to play, and they're just like sitting in my library. And I'm definitely the type of person who will be sitting and I'll be like, I have all these great games to play, but I haven't started them, and I'm too lazy to start them. So like I literally started Jedi Fallen Order, and I played it for like 3 hours, and like it was super fun. And then now I'm like, I just want to sit here and like play Animal Crossing, because my brain is like so overloaded from online school that I don't want to play anything like that could challenge me mentally in the slightest. And like that's a really bad habit, because I have so many games that I need to get to that I haven't because of it. But like that's just how I feel, and I feel like that stopped me a lot. I'm playing a lot of games that I have and just haven't had the chance to play.
That is interesting. That is a slightly different pivot. Like, are there games that you guys have wanted to play for a while or own and never really touched? I mean, I know
Yes.
Matt and I
Yeah.
are in a similar situation in the Steam library wise. That how many games did you say you own? Like 160?
189. But I have a
yeah.
lot of free stuff that I never removed from my library because now Steam counts everything the free games you don't have installed.
I'm at
Yours is a lot
332 right now.
Yeah.
And I have
Never
not
claimed mine
played
was-
90% of them.
Are you see like
Because he
they're from
only
Humble
plays
Bundles.
CSGO.
Well, they're from Humble Bundles, to be fair. And I haven't even played
yeah.
CS in a while. But
How do you
there's
say how
some
many
in
games
here.
you have?
So
If you go to your main profile, it'll show you on the right side, for me at least.
if you go into your library and there's a drop down for games, you can see games, software, videos, tools.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The
too.
games number is how I saw it.
374.
I only have 32, but like that's a lot for me.
Yeah.
Like
I
that's a
haven't
lot
played
for
a
me
lot.
personally,
I
and
guess
I've
for-
only played like 3 of them, and that's like
Yeah.
actually insane. I've had like I don't know.
Okay, but I bet my number's closer to yours if you count console stuff, because I've got
for
I have
sure.
I have a good number of stuff between Switch, Wii U, PS4, One, 360, and original Xbox and
Yeah.
DS. I'm probably somewhere closer to you, but
Well, here's a game that's an absolute disgrace that I haven't touched is The Witcher.
Oh my gosh,
Bro, I need
Stop.
to play The Witcher.
oh, it's a disgrace that you haven't touched it.
That I haven't touched it.
Yeah, don't
It's
tell
an,
The
it's
Witcher
an
a
incredible
disgrace.
game. Oh, no.
Yes.
Next time it goes on sale, I saw you bought it on sale, Matt. Next time it goes on sale, I'm going to buy the Game of the Year edition, and I'm going to try to play it.
I bought the base game for like $20. Let's see how far into that game am I?
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say, Chase?
45 hours.
Nice.
The one game I guess that's like sitting there taunting me is Breath of the Wild.
Play it.
You must
Please.
I played like 5 hours.
Continue.
And I know I'm like it's gonna get better. It's gonna get
I'm in the same place
Um,
as you in Breath of the Wild. Like I played 100 hours and I stopped, and I still have so much stuff to do. Like I just got the
Yeah.
expansion pack. I have not done anything.
Yeah, I guess it's just I need to get I need to be in the right mood. That's on this thing, especially because I know this is different, but I don't know, at least for
Does
me,
Switch
I
go
guess because I always
playtime?
had yes it does.
Let's
It's
find
like
out.
5
then.
hours. No.
Let
Like
me
5 hours for me. When I compare that to something, a game that I love and is probably one of, if not, I think somebody asked me my favorite game was recently, and I think I said Mario Odyssey, which is
That's good.
a
Good shot.
fantastic game.
I have 95 hours in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I have like 5. I think I have 5 hours on it.
Mine says 95 or more, and I don't know what that
That's
means.
it. Always says that because you're up to it goes by 5, so that means like
Oh, really?
95 to 100. Yeah. So
Weird.
it won't say like, oh, you have 96. It'll just say 95, and then it'll say 100. Yeah, I don't know. That's
You know,
just
it's a
like
game
on
that
my
has a lot
list
of-
of I
Sorry.
need to come back to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a game that has a lot of depth that I've seen some of my friends getting into, but I never really got into, which is RimWorld. Matt might be the one that most knows it, but it's a very...
I've never played it.
I played it for about 10 hours, and then I sort of fell off, but it has a lot more depth than I've given it credit for.
That's the one Alan got a while ago, right? He was playing.
Yeah, he was big into it.
Yes, I
Yeah.
remember now.
I would also
Yeah.
like to play more games like Life is Strange. I've been having a great time with Life is Strange 2 recently. I watched a playthrough of Life is Strange 1, and I've been playing the second one. But I would like to play more games like that. Those are quite cool.
I'm the only one in here with the PS4, right?
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
have
so.
one.
It's unfortunate. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know if this is tipping my hand too much. If you ever get the chance, Persona
Spider-Man.
5,
Oh my
Spider-Man.
god.
Yeah.
Persona 5. I
I
just
have been
bought.
trying.
I bought Royal, and I've been playing through it. It's very anime. I'll just warn you now. It is pinnacle JRPG, but it's an excellent game. Excellent story.
Yeah. I've been hearing a few people tell me about that.
Because Royal
been-
just came out like a month ago, which is essentially the ultimate edition. Air quote.
I've been trying to play Persona 5 for like literally ever, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it on my PC, but I feel like that will end badly.
I don't think it can be done legally.
Welcome
Hello,
back.
welcome
Oh
back.
no, it definitely can't.
I'm back. I returned
Yeah, we
from
talked to catch you up,
Exodus.
Spencer. Welcome back. We talked a bit about. You were here when we started talking about the genres that changed gaming.
Yeah.
And games. We went on from that to talk about things that haven't really been thoroughly explored yet, or games that are like unique, but more could be done in that area. We talked a bit about Rocket League. Talked a little bit about Tycoons briefly, which was somewhat unrelated, but and we talked about the disappointment that was No Man's Sky, but how people don't give enough credit. We mentioned briefly some indie games that are really good and not quite at the forefront. I thought that up until the 1.4 release, Terraria didn't get enough recognition, and Matt talked a bit about Darkest Dungeon, and then we just were sort of talking about games that we play that we think are really interesting, but kind of have special things about them.
All right.
Do you have any game like that for you that you feel like kind of flies under the radar, or that you...
You know what I started playing recently that I think is pretty underrated is a Lethal League.
I've never heard of
that. They made a sequel like a year ago that I'm gonna buy, but
It's a very good one.
basically, it's a fighting game, but
It's more like dodgeball.
yeah, instead of actually like hitting the person, there's like a baseball that you have to hit, and each time a person hits the ball like the ball will hit and damage or kill the other person. So it's essentially like dodgeball, and each time you hit the ball, each time someone hits the ball, it accelerates, and so after you hit it a couple times, the ball just starts going crazy fast. And I think what's funny is in the sequel, in their patch notes, one of the things that it says is no weak shit, and I think that's about the best way you can describe this game. It's very good. It has a very unique aesthetic too. It's
very like comic book.
Yeah, it's like comic-y, kind of like punkish. The sequel, I wouldn't recommend getting the first game, because there's a sequel that is, from the looks of it, is just the same as the first game but with better graphics and more content. But that's a pretty cool game that I just started playing recently. I'm sure there's like plenty of other underrated games that I have, but I just can't think of at the moment. But I'll tell you when I think of them.
We were also talking about games that we have always wanted to play but never got around to. I mentioned The Witcher. I don't know. There was quite the variety in games there, actually, that people want to play.
I have a lot of games on my backlog, which I will play eventually. I just haven't yet. The Witcher being among those.
Yeah, it's definitely a worthy pickup. About 40. I think I looked. I have like 45 hours in it now. It's very good. I was enjoying that very much. I don't know. Some people have complaints about it, and the complaints are opinion based, in my opinion, a lot. I mean, the game's came out in today just had its 5-year anniversary. So it came out in 2015, and it looks like it came out in 2015. It looks great, but it looks like it's great for 2015. So it holds up, but it holds up like a game from 2015. Probably my only complaint. There's some weird graphic stuff that sometimes happens. Maybe that's just my computer, because I also have the most absurd Skyrim glitch in the universe, which is that if I don't stare at the horse in the cart at the beginning, the cart just flips, like ignores gravity. It hits a rock and it flips upside down.
Your computer has had the most interesting situations. You had like the whole DirectX thing at some point too.
Yeah, where DirectX just decided to stop working, and then I restarted it one day and it just was working. Like after a year and a half of not working.
So bizarre.
Your computer's interesting, man.
I don't know why. The Skyrim thing's on both, because I've done it on my laptop and on my desktop. It happened on both. I don't know what's wrong with old REM.
Account. It's cloud synced. Yeah. Cloud synced bug.
Through my obviously.
No, that's
maybe it's just old REM, but
probably. We've talked quite a bit about games that we play at this point, but we haven't really talked about like what we've seen from our own time designing games, or parts of games that we might not necessarily agree with, for example. So
the purpose.
Well,
we found it.
So one of the things that I thought would be interesting to talk about is, what do you guys think are like the hardest parts of a game to get right? Like, are there games that you feel like are really good, but then it has like one critical flaw or something? Or what have you guys had a really hard time making in your games or thinking about how to implement in your games and you think is like really important to get right?
Yes, our games.
Well, and is there anybody that does get it right? Like, are there games that are notorious for getting something really hard done well?
Um,
The answer is yes.
Thanks, man.
To the
really
second
helpful.
part, I'm just trying to think of a good example.
I have a thing. It's really, really, really cliche. But God, so many things screw up online multiplayer.
It's
That is
just
a hard-
like
Yeah.
Lots of things get it right, but so many things get it wrong.
it's just like everyone wants every game to have multiplayer, and not every game should have multiplayer.
Right.
And so when
And-
you're like multiplayer, it's like
And then there are some games that have obvious multiplayer solutions where the developers feel the need to come up with the most random and nonsensical implementation of multiplayer ever. I hate to talk about freaking Super Mario Party again, but I'm going to talk about Super Mario Party again. When you play multiplayer online, you can only play the mini games. You can't play multiplayer with your friends on a Mario Party board, which makes no sense to me. Like, why? You had one job. Which is to let
Nintendo's
Mario
online
Party
is just
online.
kind of like shit all around.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Nintendo has lots of problems with online. That's not to say they don't ever get it right. I would actually say Super Mario Maker 2 online, when it's not lagging, because that happens. When it's not lagging, the way okay, there are two different parts to online. There's the infrastructure, and then there's the actual thing. The way in which the system is built, and the way in which, like, obviously, it is experienced. Obviously, Mario Maker 2 has problems, big lag problems, in terms of, but that's like any Nintendo thing. However, the way the thing is set up and designed, for the most part, is perfect. Like, I love the way that works. It is fun to play online. There is an incentive to play online rather than playing single player. It's not flawless. The ranking system is a little hibby-jibby when you get to the higher ups. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, there's some other things too, I guess. One thing that comes to my mind in terms of weird execution. This isn't an online thing, but it's another one of those things where I feel like sometimes developers will feel the need to change things just for the sake of changing things. If anyone ever played the original Mario Kart 8, not the Switch remaster,
Yeah.
original, their battle mode tracks were just tracks from the game.
yeah, that was
Yoshi's
weird.
Valley was a battle track.
Yeah, there were just like 8 of the tracks that they just
Why?
picked, and they're like, fight.
Like, those are the kind of things that I look at and I'm like, did you think? Like, obviously it was probably a time or a money saving maneuver. But still, there are things like that where it's like, did you think this through? Like, but why did you,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
Why?
that could work, like the idea of doing a different thing on the same tracks, but not those game types which work on smaller maps that aren't linear.
Yeah.
Like, they could have come up with a different battle mode for the normal tracks, as opposed to just going track mode.
Come on, Nintendo doesn't have the budget for that, Matt. Come on.
Obviously,
I think something to throw in there as well is like, I think it's not that hard to get right, but a surprising amount of games get it wrong is just control schemes. I mean, I think you. I'm gonna tip my hat to Fringe Contender a
Halo.
little bit.
Halo.
Yeah, Halo.
Halo,
FPS
the weird odd child of the FPS family.
FPSs have a lot of weird controls. Like, even just the little things. Like, some games have left control for crouch, others have it for sprint, others have it for walk. It's like,
I'm sorry,
why do I have
Gabe.
to go
Did
into
you
every
want to
game
aim?
and rebind?
Did you want to aim your gun with left trigger? No. That's throw a grenade.
Yeah, I don't understand, bro. Like, how
It's
it
bizarre.
can't.
Or
Guys,
you
it
could
can't
get,
be this hard.
or you could get Splatoon 2's camera, which basically has a mind of its own.
Oh well,
You know
camera's
that
a whole
control
other
stick you're
story.
using? No. Well, we don't care about that camera.
Yeah, can't you only control one axis of the Splatoon camera with the
Yes,
joystick?
the
You can only
Spl-
do side to side, right?
Yeah,
this.
it's pretty weird.
That's terrifying.
Honestly, that is one of the things that got me to stop playing Splatoon. Was that the camera controls are so god awful.
I only play the first and
It
only
is
briefly.
I mean,
but-
Splatoon 2 is Splatoon 1, but better. And honestly, and also, of course, here's another thing I'm going to do, which I wholeheartedly blame the Wii for. People who feel the need, this trend has mostly died down, but there are still some offenders, to shove motion controls in places that there is no business for motion controls to be in. Why do I have motion controls in Splatoon to aim?
You want to know
Why?
what's even more dumbfounding? Why does Until Dawn have an option for motion controls? Until
It
Dawn,
does?
yeah. You know what?
I
You know how?
never
You know what it
did
is? You point at the choice.
That's
Why?
fucking. That's
Why
stupid.
is that even a thing? I mean, it's like maybe it's just like we need to take advantage of the DualShock 4's advantages, but it's like
Use all the features.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, because I've typed stuff on the PS4, like just for reasons. Like the year I got it, I wrote my thank you notes, I wrote e-cards, and I wrote it using the PS4. Like I'm using the thing I got to write it, whatever. But there's an option to use the on-screen keyboard with motion controls.
So are you just like,
Does that work?
It actually works better for me. I can type faster than using the cursor.
I guess I have Parkinson's. I wouldn't be able to point at the right letter. I mean,
Well, it's not like point. It's just like gyro.
carpal tunnel life?
It's just gyro.
Oh, and it like switches
So-
the selection.
No, so it's like it has a cursor, like a little circular cursor,
Oh, okay.
like you would on a touchscreen, and
if
you
there's
just
enough
move that
smoothing
with
on
the
that,
gyro.
that could work rather well, actually.
Like I got kind of good at it because I wrote like 10 thank you notes using it, and so it like I don't know, it's interesting. You can use the on-screen keyboard, you can use the trackpad that's on the controller, and you can use motion controls. It's the most ways I've ever seen to use an on-screen keyboard in my life, and I don't know why they exist.
In my experience with like
Tangent.
control issues, a lot of it has been with games that are ported from one platform to another. I'm gonna have to say, I don't know how you people do it, but whoever plays Monster Hunter World on PC with mouse and keyboard, you are a terrible person, and
That's
you might as well
Derek.
yourself. It's not playable.
And Ryan,
It's not playable.
Ryan
like,
as
how
well?
do you guys do that?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I
I
think
think
Ryan.
Ryan does.
You have to play with a
I hope
controller.
to God that he doesn't.
Absolute monster.
Absolute monsters.
I hope to God.
I think
Gabe,
Ryan
I'm
does.
gonna ask you a random question that's
Do tell.
it's unrelated to this topic, but still, within the video game,
Mm-hmm.
design topic. But so you've played a lot of Minecraft and CS:GO
Yes.
as as an understatement. But so
Beat me to it.
one thing I've always been curious is how much do you think that those two games have influenced you in your design process for like the games that we've made over the years?
I don't know.
That's
Gabe's like, we have to have an open world, so
Okay.
I think
okay,
it did
guys,
have an
calm down,
influence.
okay.
Right.
Open worlds are really cool.
I want to hear from his perspective,
All
I
the
think-
things
or
are-
maybe some things that were like less obvious to us. That might
Yeah.
have.
I mean, I think a lot of people can like pitch in with this stuff too, especially Chase because he's played a lot of Minecraft. But one of the things that I think
That's
was
an
something that I didn't
accomplishment
really.
coming from Gabe. I said that's an accomplishment coming from Gabe. For Gabe
Oh,
to say
yeah,
someone
no,
plays a
he's
lot of
played a lot,
Minecraft
man.
is
He's played a lot
I have
too.
played an
He's probably
ungodly
pretty close
amount
to
of
me in terms of
Minecraft.
like we might be right up there in terms of playtime together. But anyway,
I am sorry.
yeah. But one thing I would mention is that it wasn't really until this year when we were trying to come up with our game process that I had a bit of an epiphany, which is like the more that we can give in terms of options to the player can create, the player can make more gameplay for themselves. That's a really good idea. That's why we ended up doing the level editor in Tritonal this year.
Even
and
though
I
it
feel
had no
like
place being there.
shut up. But well, okay, no, it works rather well in the game, I think. But a lot of like that idea, I think
Yeah,
is really
need
good.
some
I
iron
The
understand.
idea of
out.
being
fine
able
with
to, the idea of being able to create content yourself is really good. I mean, Spencer definitely sarcastically, passive aggressively hit the nail on the head there. I'm a big fan of open world stuff. The idea of just
That was
giving-
me.
No, that was Matt. No, that wasn't.
That
me.
was definitely
that was
me.
you? Oh, I'm sorry.
I leaned in
Yeah.
real close and made
I
that
can't
point.
tell. Everybody probably has a grudge against me for that, but I'm a big fan of open
Grudge
world
is the wrong
stuff.
word.
We did it with
Legacy.
what's it called, Legacy last year, and we also to a certain extent did it with Fringe Contender. The idea that like
The top-
the
right, the
overworld you
top-down
could walk around
component of that.
anywhere, that was a cool idea. We essentially
know if that's-
merged like a Pokemon overworld map with like the in-game
Oh,
areas.
God.
I wouldn't call that a open world game though.
I'd
Not
say it's
open
pretty
world,
close.
but certainly influenced in the fact where that game very easily could have been. You just it's done and you go to the next level.
Yeah, it
Here
could have
you
just been a
go.
level selector, but that's like
It could have been Mario.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
to a certain extent, it's similar to the Mario Overworld, like the map selector, but it's just more
No, but
interesting.
it's not. No,
There
'cause the
are
Mario
other things.
Mario overworld selectors are just there, and you occasionally got your little Toad house, your little like mini game, and that's that's kind of that.
When it comes to CS, it's a bit different. None of the real gameplay mechanics from CS have ever fit into anything that we've done. But I do think that one of the things from CS that definitely deserves a shout, or how it impacted me at least, is the competitive aspect to it. The idea that you can keep playing and actually improve. Like not just being able to get a higher score or get better at the game, but the idea that you can directly see the effects of you being better against other people or against your previous scores or stuff like that. Being able to progress in a game rather than just playing it for fun has always been a really big motivator for me to play games, which is why it took me so long to get into like story-driven stuff. Because I was much more keen to play stuff where I can, even if it's the same thing over and over, if I can get better at it, that competition was big for me, which is why I think we did a lot, or why I wanted to at least do a lot of the leaderboard stuff this year, as well as the idea that you can just progress through stuff like Fringe Contender. Like there's actual upgrades. The more you play, it rewards you by helping you play better as well.
Sure.
So I don't know. I found that stuff interesting.
You mentioned that you had a hard.
Do that.
You mentioned you had a hard time with story, but for me, I've always been a big story person. So it was weird considering that I play Nintendo games, and the plotline of Nintendo is, oh no, Peach is gone, Mario go safe. But at least for me in a personal, obviously board games are their own thing. But this year I made a joke. It states that I basically could probably write about a 20-page lore book for my board game. And I haven't thought about the whole thing, but there are definitely, like, I understand, and I think a lot of that is a justification. I think this goes back to video game too. It's more important, I think, in other game design mediums where you have to kind of put a little more suspension of disbelief out there, obviously because you can't do as much as you can in a video game. But the idea that there is a reason for everything that you are doing. This is a world. These are not just actions. You are not you are a part of something. Your character has a reason for being there. You are an active force in the plot. And this is not some place. This is an environment. There is a story. There is a people. These are resources. It's a world. And that has always been, really important to me. Is, it's fun to kind of just get to be in a different world and get to know, they said these people or this culture or this space station or this environment or this planet or, whatever it is. Circling back, I guess the whole Minecraft thing. If we wanted to count, I guess if we wanted to say the first games, other than that one thing I did on the app, I guess the first games like I fully made were like in Minecraft. I actually have, like I said, obviously everyone wanted to host a server. I've been trying to figure out how to do it for ages, and my internet's too crappy to do it. But I built I built my own like Smash Brothers map in Minecraft, and I planned out all the kits, and all that kind of stuff. And it's absurd. It's really absurd, and I can never figure out how to do all the command block stuff properly. But it was fun, I guess. And I did the same thing. I wanted to do a Mario Kart map, but again, I can never figure out the stuff, which I probably could now. But I've moved on, and now that I'm able to kind of make my own games in other mediums, that's where I kind of prefer to land. But,
That stuff's interesting. I feel like, I've certainly had a very different experience with games than most of the people here. The Minecraft thing is fairly universal, but the Counter-Strike thing, nobody here really has dedicated a lot of time to FPSs, or even necessarily competitive games in that matter. But
I have like 1,000+ hours in Civ 5, and
I guess that could be counted as that, yeah.
A large portion, I'd say most of it, is from multiplayer games. Basically, so like in middle school, like really like from like 5th grade to like 7th grade, 8th grade, me and a couple of my old friends from elementary school would go in Steam groups for Civ 5 and basically just like find multiplayer games and just like, grind them out till like 1 or 2 in the morning because, Civ games are like 6 hours long.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I think it's 1,000+ hours, so like it's probably larger than it is because games of Civ are like 6 hours, whereas a game of CS:GO is like 1 hour.
Yeah, give or take. I mean, less, like 40 minutes, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but either way, so I know how it is to like get really involved in a game's like competitive scene. Even though Civ doesn't really have an actual competitive scene. I mean, like there is like a high level of play, and like you can definitely tell like if someone like knows what they're doing or if they're like a noob, but and it is also, it's completely different from CS:GO. It's like it's kind of like the opposite. Like CS:GO is like one of the most fast paced like first person shooters, and Civ is a turn based 4X strategy game. So
yeah. I mean, Issa is the closest person here, I think, that has like other experience in those competitive games. You play quite a bit of League, right?
oh.
Oh,
I muted myself. So, okay. So I was trying to check how many hours I had in it because I don't have that many, but okay, I wanted to talk about like tutorials to games and talk about League because like, so it's really the only experience I've had with like competitive games, and like it's always like a struggle between like, do I want to play it just to have fun or do I want to play it and actually get good? And like League is one of those games where it's very hard to just play it to have fun because like it's so tilting to like not do well. And I don't know if that's just me, but like unless you're literally throwing with 4 other idiots, like, and you're doing it for fun, like you're not gonna have fun if you're trying and like losing. You know what I mean?
yeah, I can confirm she plays competitive games. Yeah.
I was going to say that is some amount personality and some percent game, and I think it's some larger percent personality.
Yeah.
Because my reaction is just, and a lot of, as some people will know from my lacking CS:GO career, which is that if you just get dumpstered on over and over again, I can't.
Yeah, I kind of fall into the same.
But like, it's fun to also just like mess around and like literally pick like a champion you've never played and like have your friends do the same thing and just throw as a team. But like, if you yourself are trying and they're doing that, you're like, can you not, like, please?
Yeah.
I think a certain amount of it is also game though, because like so many people have that mentality where it's like, if you want to enjoy the game, like CS or League, if you want to enjoy the game and you have to get good, then people are gonna try and get good, like, to have fun at the game.
Yeah, it's also
and
just like,
and if you lose, then like then you tilt, and like people tilting at video games like League or CS or Dota or really any of like the big esports games is so common. I feel like it has to be like, I feel like some percent of it has to be the game. I don't know like what they're doing, but
I mean, I think it's
doing something.
I don't even remember.
I think
like
some
Gabe,
Spencer,
what keeps you? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, I think some amount of the game part of that are games that, and this is my main gripe with CS:GO, that are unforgiving is a word for it. That like when you get to the level of people who know what they're doing, if you don't do these things and you don't do them right, you lose.
Right.
It's like rock paper. It becomes rock paper scissors at some point. Which again, you two have heard me say all the time about CS:GO. Whether or not it's as accurate as I make it seem, it just feels like that as someone who doesn't know, who's not good at shooting on keyboard and mouse, and who can't outplay people who know what they're doing. Even if I did know what I'm doing, I can't outplay the people, and so it feels like it feels like you're just slamming your head into a wall that won't break.
Yeah.
So, and that may just be me. That may be my approach to it, as opposed to how the game is inherently. But
I agree with that. Like, when I was first getting into League, like I was gravitated towards like marksman characters, and at the time that I played, the meta was literally like marksmen were terrible. Like people weren't even playing any of them, and there was like 2 that were good, and I picked one that was terrible. And it's like, is it really fun to play a game where like what you like playing or like the character you like playing is not in the meta, like, and you just play, but you're gonna lose because your character is terrible? And like a lot of people blame losing on characters, but like in League, it's like there's like a huge like disparity between like a good character and a bad character. It's like
Yes.
No, that's definitely different in CS. I'd say in CS. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in questions like these, right? I mean, Spencer was inching towards like what keeps me driven in CS.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like with CS:GO, like what keeps you crawling back?
What were you gonna say?
Why are you trapped in this?
so
prison?
the thing that tells me how many hours I wasted on League finally loaded, and I didn't know it was this much, but I have 896 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, amateur numbers. Talk to me when you're at 3,000.
That's the most. That's like the most I have
It's-
besides like Minecraft, I think.
Yeah.
Can you see that in Steam? Your longest
Steam will
playtimes?
show you. Yeah.
Where,
If you go to
next to the game,
like,
if you're
your
clicked on
profile.
it,
like,
or if
can
you
I
go to your
sort
profile and
by?
then gaming. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
go to
I
your
could-
profile and then
go to your
games, it'll sort by
profile.
your playtime.
Yeah, go to your profile. And
Oh,
then
right,
all
right, gotcha.
recently played, and then go to all games.
Yeah.
What I will say about CS regarding that is that it's a bit different. There's no like heroes, there's nothing like that. So
It's all user.
like you can blame cheaters, you can blame lag, you can blame he's just better.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, yeah, if you're playing against people that are better than you, sometimes they will shoot you without them you even being like they are not on your screen and you die. And that's like something you just kind of learn to deal with, and you get better and you learn to play advantageous situations. And when you get to the really high level of CS, what it ends up being is that a lot of people, barring like the outlier like prodigies or whatever, have very similar reaction times, very similar like spray control. Like they will kill you in the first like 5 bullets. Like everybody is good at the game. So the question is, who can outposition, outmaneuver, use utility better than the other enemy to give themselves the slight edge that'll have them win the fight as opposed to the other person. And a lot of that gets down to teamwork as well. So it gets less individual as you go up. So the more you get trash canned, the less individual it gets, because that's how you counter being trash canned.
I'm sorry, I believe the word is dumpstered.
Sorry,
At
dumpster.
that high level, the game becomes like less of like a tactical FPS where you're focused on like, you know, your aim and shit and your movement, and it becomes more of like a strategy game
Yes.
where you have to like communicate with your teammates and like, you know, figure out like where like the best position on the map is, and, like stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think that's
but
pretty
that's-
interesting. That's something I never really like thought of before when, you know, talking about a game like CS:GO and like Siege
Yeah.
even.
The thing about CS though is that it's like yes, at the high level it's about tactical team play, it's about having your team in the right positions, rotations, all that jazz. But people see it a lot from that macro scale, and they don't really think about it from the micro scale. If you have one person that can throw a perfectly timed flashbang and you call for it at the right time, and the other person looks away at the right time and then peeks at the right time, you can have the worst player in the server get 4 kills and win you the round from that one play alone. Something you have to make in a split-second decision, and if it's executed beautifully, it can win you a round, and maybe that round like breaks the economy of the other team, and then it wins you the game. So it can come down to the tiniest things, and more often than not it does. But if you don't have the big system in place, then you lose by default almost. So it's just there's more layers to it than people seem to realize, and that's very different
It's
from
like-
something like Valorant, because
There's a strategy like going in the background, and
yeah.
the
was
people
gonna
win
ask about
depending on
Valorant,
how
too.
successful they're able to execute the strategy.
I've played a decent amount of Valorant, and that plays a bit differently from that, in my opinion, because in Valorant, and I don't know how this is in League, but maybe you can talk about this, Issa. In Valorant, you can directly counter heroes with other heroes. If you are in a position, like there's a guy who, if he gets his ultimate, he can just put up a, like, beam of fire in an entire bomb site, and there is nothing you can do about it. If you're defusing, you die. If you are planting, you die. If you're in the ring, you die. You probably die. There's almost nothing you can do to counter it. So it's like, at what point there is it like about the really tactical depths in CS, or about just hitting the shots better?
See, the funny thing about League is like the way Riot, like, there's so many champions. There's like 140 champions, and
It's
there's
ridiculous.
always another champion that can counter you, or a champion you pick. Like, unless it's like a new one, because like every time Riot comes out with the new champion for League, they're like, "You thought that the last one we released was broken? Here's one even more broken." And then you're like, "Oh, like it can't get any worse than this." And then there's like a champion that literally steals other people's ultimates, and you're like, and there's a champion that like comes back from the
Sombra.
dead, and you're like, and then it's like every I feel like they don't.
But that
really,
actually, you mentioned that, going back to the whole balancing, I think it's interesting. Whenever you have a game, or really anything like that, where you get a steady stream of new content, there is this problem that the new stuff is always bigger and better than the old stuff. I actually
Yes.
watched a really interesting video a couple months back about Pokemon cards. and how originally like 120 HP was the max, and then they had like the ultra card, and they had like a super duper mega ultra card, whatever. And now there's like some like whale lord or something that has like 360 HP and like does like 200 damage and whatever. So I think anytime you have
power creep,
right, that's what I'm saying. Anytime you have a game like that, there's this tendency to say, oh, the new thing is always the biggest and best thing, and then you gotta one up the thing you one upped, and it's a really easy rabbit hole to fall down. And if you're not careful, you can kill your own game. Just by
card games.
Yeah.
Card games are really susceptible to that, like Hearthstone and Magic the
Yeah,
Gathering.
you beat me to the punch. I was gonna say you're talking to the person who was introed with two things, D&D and Magic, both of which experience power creep, and so I'm very familiar with power creep.
Yeah.
No, that's
Magic
Yeah, I
power
guess
creep
Magic the
can be
Gathering is
especially
definitely-
egregious.
That's what I think is so
Sometimes.
unique about CS. It's like you look at a lot of other games and they have to have some sort of hero-based component. You look at Overwatch, you look at Valorant, you look at League, you look at Dota, and the way that they keep the game fresh is they keep pumping more content into that. They keep adding more heroes or they keep changing the meta. You can give somebody who played Counter-Strike 1.6 15 years ago Counter-Strike Global Offensive right now, and they will understand how to play the game, and the meta will be like pretty similar. Within like a day, you can get them up to speed. That never happens in other games like these, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but there's
with-
also been no illusions about making CS:GO like about improving it. The other game,
Oh no. It's stagnant by design.
Like with
Matt?
League,
We lost you, Matt.
Matt,
We
your
can't
mic,
hear you.
Pokemon,
your mic died.
sorry, I slapped the mute button when I went like that. I'm
What
not
were
used
you
to
gonna
this
say,
mic.
Yusuf?
It's not mine.
oh, I was gonna say like with League, I haven't played in a couple of months, and I know that if I tried to play now, I would be like what? And
Yeah.
also like League in general is like the type of game where it's so hard for new players to get into. I actually wanted to talk about this earlier, but like I want to talk about like tutorials and learning curves for like people that aren't experienced gamers.
Yeah, you
Because,
said
like,
that. Sorry.
Okay, so basically for League, like I had such a hard time getting into it, and like I don't know if everyone else does, but like I don't know. I tried to get Pete to play, and he was like, "I don't understand this. This is boring. This is terrible. I'm never playing again." And I was like, "Okay,
That sounds like Pete.
understandable."
That's
Yeah.
Hold on. You tried to get me into League, and that didn't work.
Did
at
I? I
all.
don't even remember that. That's,
Yep.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so basically, League, like, you can't just play it. Like, you have to know what the items do. You have to know if you don't build your champion correctly, choose the right runes, build the right items, like, you are not going to be able to play the game. And that alone takes like weeks of playing to at least be able to kind of understand that. And like maybe it's because I have monkey brain and I couldn't do it fast, but like it took me literally months to like not play bot games. Like I was so bad. But like, and also just tutorials in general, like I feel like sometimes they expect too much. Like I literally know people who've played Animal Crossing for over 100 hours and did not know you could sprint. And I'm not saying that Animal Crossing like didn't give enough of a tutorial, because that's expected of people to know how to do it. But like literally was my I can't speak. My neighbor's friend like came to my island and she was like, "How are you walking so fast?" And I'm like, "Sprinting." She's like, "You can sprint." Like literally, she has over 100 hours and not once press the B button by accident, not even by accident. And then like, I don't know. I also just, I think it's interesting to take like the completely opposite route. Like, how do you find a balance between like a tutorial like Breath of the Wild, where it's just like, here's open world, go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then like also being handheld. So like, I don't know. I prefer the Breath of the Wild thing, but also like, how do you do that, but also be friendly with new players?
Yeah, this is something I said, and I don't want to talk too much about board games here because that's its own discussion. But obviously, the same general game design principles still apply, especially when it comes to rules and regulations. So I have a lot of know-how in that sense, and I think you need to find a balance of obviously you can't just play the game for them because that's no fun. But also you have to recognize that as a game designer, it is really easy to assume like, oh, the player will know how this works because obviously this is the core mechanic. How can they not understand this? And I'll give you an example, like on Polaris, like it took me a while to explain to people that no, you don't have to play a card to tilt the board. You can always tilt the board. They're like, oh. And in my head, I'm like, how did you not get that? But, it's easy for me as the designer of that game to understand that mechanic, but it's something else entirely to go to somebody else and have to, hand them a piece of paper and say, okay, here's everything, I'm not always going to be there to explain to them every single niche little detail and how everything works.
And you want to talk about not having to explain to the people playing a game that you designed about how they're supposed to do things? Oh boy.
D&D is the
I
opposite.
apologize to two of my players in the call, but man, some people really just don't remember how things work. Man, when do I get sneak attack? I'm not going to continue, but
I mean, that counts as game design, though. It's the same idea. It's different. D&D is certainly an interesting example.
It is entirely its own beast and something I could talk about at great length.
Well, I think because, the D&D, like, it's very stylish. I mean, everyone plays differently. There are some people who are like, here is the book, and that's my phone. But either way, the point is, here is the book. I will read from the book, and you will do the exact book. But obviously, that's not the most fun way to play D&D. You have to have.
I'm kidding.
Well, no, but I'm saying, because you have to have some room for creative interpretation, like to do your own stuff. And obviously a lot of that depends on your dungeon master, which, as I said, I've never joined you for a game in D&D, so I am not here to uphold or destroy your dungeon mastering abilities. But I think, I don't know.
You can dunk on me all you want. It's fine.
No, that's
I think that is a very interesting.
It's so the thing that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that definitely applies and kind of, I don't know. So it depends on games, and I can speak a little to this because I've been playing a game called Path of Exile. It's like action RPG. Think vaguely World of Warcraft, except not
Diablo.
Diablo. Thank you. That's the
Ryan compared it to Diablo.
Yeah, he's been playing Path as well, but the same type of thing is like with the D&D group. The something you have to establish very early is what you're trying to get out of the game. Do you want? And I've never done this verbally and specifically, so I apologize, but this is something that should be important when you start with a new group. Is you go, what are you looking for out of this experience? Is this a story to you? Are you playing this like a video game? Like, do you want to min-max your characters? Do we want to just do combat game dot game? Is it just combat dot game the whole time, or are we crafting a narrative? Is that what you want to do? And so, like, how deep do you want to go in your backstories, etc.? For example, Path of Exile, huge game. I've been playing it. I don't know what's going on because I've been skipping every ounce of story in the game because I've just been enjoying the gameplay. And I'm like, some point, maybe if I care, I'll go back and I'll watch it and I'll look through the story. But that's something interesting, again, to make the circle back with game design, is you can design a game all you want for, you have to know what your audience is, and you have to craft for your audience. And some people may play your game and be like, I'm not that audience, but I enjoy it anyway. So it's like, there's an interesting, I don't remember what incited this comment. Maybe it was just D&D coming up, but it's an interesting balance you have to make between, like, I have this idea, I have this vision, like, I'm this type of player. I want to make a game because this will be really cool for telling a story, etc. And then you go, well, what if people don't want the story, aren't invested in story, they're invested in gameplay? And not everything can do both, obviously, and you can focus on one or the other. But being able to do both means you get people who only care about the story, who enjoy it all the same, and people who don't give a crap about the story and still enjoy it. And it can be, I think it's a good game. I just think that's interesting, and that's to loop back into what we were talking about. I apologize for the tangent, but
no, it's definitely interesting. I think
that's good.
It's a fine balance for sure. It's the kind of thing that I don't think we've done exceptionally well in the past, but it's definitely one of those things that I think is harder to do when you sort of pick up with experience. How do you offer something for everybody, and do you want to offer something for everybody? It's something you have to figure out in your core, the core of what your game is, rather than just trying to figure it out as you go along, which I think a lot of games sort of fall into the trap of.
Yeah. One thing I noticed on the pretty much all of the TSA games that we've made, really except for like Legacy, is that they're all gameplay focused, and the only story that's given is like in the documentation.
I mean, that was the same for Legacy. Let's be real.
Yeah. I mean, like,
it didn't quite make it. It was supposed to. It didn't really make it.
Yeah.
No, I mean the story part.
No, I thought you were judging that it had no gameplay, which is also a very valid judgment. No. Yeah.
I think ultimately it was the right thing, just because if the judges are going to play the game, then
Right. Well, that's just the
fun.
nature of the way that competition is judged. And like I said, board game has fallen into the same victim where a lot of the emphasis does not go on the game design, which is fine. That is a perfectly acceptable approach to take. It is not my preference. I'm far more concerned with the design process than, say, the manufacturing process. But I think it is, because even, like I said, even in board game, like I said, like Polaris is not the kind of game you do not need to read the hypothetical 20-page lore book in order to understand the game. However, if you would like to do that, I think it makes it cooler, in my opinion. It certainly doesn't need to be there, but it's nice. It's a nice addition.
Yeah. So where I was going was, so like if we had more time, then I think we would have, squeezing those story bits in would have like really added another level to our game, because people could choose. It's like, oh, if they like the story stuff, then they can do that as well the rest of the game. And if they don't care about the story, then they could just skip it and enjoy the gameplay. Having the option there is always great. And I think a big mistake is like forcing one down the player's throat. Like a good example, I think, is the new Pokemon games, because for whatever reason, they've decided to make the story a bit more center stage. And like a lot of it, in Sword and Shield, it wasn't as bad, but in Sun and Moon, it was really bad, where you had lots of unskippable cutscenes, lots of just unnecessary dialogue and unnecessary interactions. And like, if we're going to be honest, like, Pokemon's never had like the most riveting story. It's always been like, the evil team is doing this thing and the big legendary guy shows up. And I think, it's good. I think the games should have those stories, but they shouldn't be like forced upon the player if the player doesn't care about it.
Were you gonna say something? You said you looked very.
I mean, like, okay,
livid,
so
almost.
I like Pokemon. I haven't played every Pokemon game. I played Sword and Shield, and I played like Fire Red and stuff.
You've known Pete for this long, and he hasn't forced you to play every.
Well, he has, but
How
it's mostly like I have like 20 Pokemon games that I have not played yet, because I'm actually playing Sun right now, like literally in the middle of Sun right now. Mm-hmm. But like, okay. Playing Sword and Shield was so disappointing, because I was like, oh my god, like it has like an open like wild area. It's gonna be so cool. But then like the story was so, I hated it. I don't know.
Yeah, the story's pretty bad.
I know people that are like, oh my god, Hop's like character arc was so like riveting. I'm like, are you kidding me? Hop was so annoying. Hop was so annoying, and his dudes were not good. Like it's okay. It wasn't really the story that bothered me. It was the fact that it was so easy that I didn't care. If it was harder, I would have been like, ooh, like I care more about the story. Like this is actually difficult. But then they're like, I'm the best trainer. Like I've grown so much. Like this is the hardest gym battle of your life. And then it's like so easy. You're like, playing this for like, I don't know. And like the older games, like even though the story didn't really matter, like I liked it better. Like,
it was there. Yeah. But it never like forced you out of the core gameplay. It's like in the old games, when you'd find Team Rocket, there wouldn't be like a 10-minute cutscene of the Team Rocket guys explaining their whole thing and like being like, I'm the strongest guy in the world, you will never be. It just goes on and on and on, and then you kill them in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I think the old games would be like, you'd find the evil leader, there'd be like 2 text boxes being like, I am the evil guy, this is what I want to do. And then you'd fight. And in the old games, the fights would actually be hard.
Yeah.
And you'd actually have to like think about what you're doing. It was just a little bit more, meaningful. Even though the stories were never like better. In fact, the stories were probably worse. Like in the Hoenn games, like Team Aqua and Team Magma are so stupid.
Yeah. Oh my god.
They're just very entertaining. Like they do what they're supposed to. Like there is a story, and it's not great, but you can still like laugh at it and be entertained by it, because it doesn't interfere with the gameplay.
Yeah, like some of the fun also in the older games was like that you didn't have to talk to everyone, or like if you did
Right.
talk to everyone, it was like an extra little spice. Like
Yeah, there's like exploration, like little bonuses. Right?
But in the new games, like if you talk to everyone, it's like boring. Like they're just like, "Hi, I'm a guy," and that's like the entire.
Well, even, like if you look at like the route, one thing that's interesting is like the route designs of the new regions are so linear. Like in the old games, like each town could be connected to like 3 different routes, and you can just kind of go ahead if you wanted to. Whereas now in the games, there's like one town that's connected to like 2 routes, an entrance and an exit, and if you haven't beaten the gym yet, you can't leave.
Yeah.
I don't know about saying the old games were any better about that. Leaf Green, you really couldn't go to any city that wasn't in the correct path. I mean, you were always blocked by HMs or Cinnabar Island being Cinnabar Island. It was
the
a
HM
loop.
artificial things are kind of bad.
That's a weird one. But
So it was still like that. It just wasn't geographically like that. Sorry.
right, I mean, like that is a good exception. But Hoenn and Johto are like with like gold and silver and purple and silver too. You can do the 7th gym before you do the 5th gym and the 6th gym.
Huh.
Because you can just go ahead to the route and do like the whole like Lake of Rage thing before you go off and do surf, because it's not exclusively HM block. Same thing with Hoenn. Hoenn has a really weird design, which I wouldn't necessarily say is good, but it's just very non-linear. It's like you have to do a lot of backtracking. You have to like run around everywhere. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but I think it's still more entertaining than just like going from point A to point B and going from point C to point D and so on.
Like I said, I'm not a big Pokemon guy. You mentioned the barriers thing. That's one thing that I always strive for in game design, going back to Claris, is I hate having artificial rules or barriers that feel like they are there because the designers didn't know what they were doing. Originally, I had a rule that you couldn't put this type of piece on this space, and the reason was is just because, and I told people, I'm like, that just feels like a cop-out to me. It's just like, oh, we said you couldn't put it there because, I don't know, we didn't figure out what would happen if we did, and we just designed this mechanic for you. And that is another like thing that like I guess makes me annoyed, are mechanics that to me feel like designer cop-outs. And I guess like putting just like a barrier like, oh, you can't go here because there's a man there who will yell at you if you cross this path. I've never been a fan of that. I've always been...
At least in Pokemon, there is something in the way, and you have to be able to use a specific move to remove the obstacle.
I get that.
Small bush, I can't go around it. There's a waterfall. There's no other path. There's a rock. There's no other path.
To be fair, waterfall is probably the best of them.
There's no other path around it. Like,
right.
That's the most likely, though.
I like the entrance. There's just like a guy like T-posing in the center, and like he just won't.
Right.
No, Snorlax
now that
is
I've
the worst
cleared a
offender.
path. Now that I've cleared a path through the entire region for all of the future adventurers, I can now fly. I don't care about the path anymore.
Guys, there's this Pokemon in the middle of the road, and I know you've been fighting Pokemon like all day, but you can't wake it up unless you get this flute. Yeah, the flute, which is definitely louder than a Loudred you could probably have at that point in the game, something.
Sure.
Literally,
like roll over him. I don't know.
To be fair, literally Fringe Contender though. We did that exact. The roadblock in Fringe Contender was kind of bad, but we didn't have much of a choice, to be fair.
Yeah. Also, it's less bad because we only had like the one level.
Yeah, but if you expanded it, I didn't want it to be that way. I definitely wanted it to be more open.
Sure.
That was tutorial.
No, but we were certainly on the right path and going. We've had this whole discussion about optional story, and I feel like Fringe Contender is the closest we have gotten in that regard. We certainly had a long ways to go.
But it was there.
But we were on the right track.
Yeah.
No, there definitely was some thought put into that story.
There was a foundation.
I think Legacy, with enough time and put into actually putting the story into the game, would have outstripped it. But,
correct.
Yeah, but we got closer in Fringe Contender to actually executing it. Yeah. I mean, we had dialogue boxes in Legacy. They told you about
that we did 15 minutes before we had to turn in the game.
Yeah.
Me being like, we'll just write the dialogue at the time, be it 11:45. Writer's block.
It was a good time. We copied the same sentence and changed it a lot. It worked. It turns out that's all you need to make games. You just copy things
I mean,
and reskin them.
To be fair,
Valve
all that
TM.
dialogue was a bunch of people saying the same thing because something weird had happened, and it was
Oh
a
my
bunch
god,
of people
something
commenting.
weird has happened. Maybe you should go talk to the old man and then enter the vault.
Yeah, basically.
No, the old guy tells you to go in the vault.
Sorry.
They don't-
Oh, sorry, the
people
old guy.
don't.
And there's that beautiful like he puts his arm back animation. I was really proud of that animation. Oh,
What a strange occurrence. Perhaps you should converse with the elderly folk.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but yeah.
That's
That's
weird.
Mysterious
People now.
events have recently occurred.
That's giving credence to Alan's. Wait, we need to find information. Let's find the oldest person in the city.
Yeah, it's D&D style right there. But no,
Yeah.
we I think that definitely would have been something more interesting to take a look at. We haven't really done any story based stuff. But that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. So do you guys have any closing remarks? Any shout outs you want to make? Anything that you want to say?
I don't know. Games are good. I don't
Game
know.
fun. Go play game. If you have the brain, go make game.
Yeah, pretty much. Even
You're
if,
Excellent
so-
advice.
yeah, even if you don't like want to pursue game design as like a career, I mean, like I don't, but it's good if you just want to like get introduced to art or programming or sound design or even just like like project planning. There's a lot of
Yeah.
skills that are
Sorry.
present in game design that can be very useful for the future.
Yeah.
So
I'll link
if
a
it,
TED
if
Talk
it
up there or
interests you,
something.
then I recommend trying.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
If you could pick one video game to like be the standard video game to give to anyone who's never played a video game before to like get them into video games, which one would you choose?
That's rough.
I don't know.
I mean, it's gotta be easy to play, right? It's gotta be easy to play. It's gotta be at least somewhat linear. I mean, Mario isn't a terrible shout, like the Mario Bros stuff.
Mario. Oh,
So is your question
Like
what is the
Minecraft.
our quintessential video game, or what is the
Like-
introduction?
Like,
I
are
don't
you
know,
saying like you literally walk up to somebody and you hand them a thing? You're like, here it is. This is
This
a
is
video
video games. Yeah.
Yes.
This is Blidio
Well,
Blip.
no, just like something to get them started.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah, to
they'll
get
be
them
like,
started.
whoa, more.
I mean, my
You
mind
need a
went to
hook.
Minecraft, but I feel like that's hard.
I
to
was
get
gonna
people
say, I'm like,
started.
I was gonna go there, but that almost feels like it's like kind
I
of
think-
a cop out.
No, I think Minecraft is too open. If people saw it and like I feel like a lot of people who played it first might be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Video games are stupid. So
Darkest Dungeon. No, absolutely.
I would honestly say Super Mario Bros.
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one.
Darkest Dungeon. Get out of here.
Let me look at my
Dark
Steam
Souls
library.
3.
Ah, yes. Excellent.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that quite fits that category, but
I mean, it's hard to say like games.
Yeah.
What is?
No, like I just mean like if I wanted my parents, like just as an example, like if I wanted to be like, Mom, like here's a video game so you can understand why I spend hours and hours of my life playing them, like
yeah, but I can't say like Tetris or Pong.
yeah.
like Wii Sports.
I do love Tetris.
Like, am I
Yeah,
supposed
but,
to
like,
put Wii Sports in there?
It definitely depends on the person, I think.
Yeah.
it
Of what you
depends on
know of the
personality.
person.
Okay.
If they,
But in general, I would go for Mario.
Okay.
yeah, if it's just a person like young people would probably like stuff like Mario and Pokemon and stuff like that. Older people probably would get more of a kick out of like multiplayer games. Really, any multiplayer game, I think, whether it's like Minecraft or Gary's Mod or even like CS:GO. I think any game, the best way to introduce someone to a game, I think, is to play with friends.
Yes.
As
that
an
helps a
adult,
lot.
as a kid,
I
as a
agree.
kid, I think you can give them anything that is good looking to a kid, like a Wii or a DS or anything like that.
The other thing is it definitely depends on the person and their patience is probably the best way to put it. For example, if they weren't like if they didn't play games, not just video games but board games or card games or etc., and they didn't have the I'm not going to say the mental faculty, but I mean like the experience to be like, there's a bunch of mechanics going on at the same time, manage them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Okay.
there are board
Right.
games that I know my parents don't like. Like, my parents will not play Magic with me. Too complicated. I get that. Magic is very complicated. But,
Yeah.
Like, a kid
bad
would-
example. But there are games that I know, like, that my parents don't like to play because it's just like a lot of things, and it's like some of my favorite games that are just like.
That's why I feel like Mario is really simple. Like you kind of figure it out.
You push the button when there's things on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, this is video game. I think that the answer changes when you're like, what type of person is it? What level of experience, proficiency, interest do they have? Because interest can overcome not having the proficiency. And like, what other types of entertainment they're interested in.
Yeah, if it's a soccer club, give them FIFA. I mean,
or if it's someone who likes to watch a lot of movies, something that's like Telltale or Until Dawn or those style of things,
that's true,
would probably be a really good, like, you know, I mean, it's the same thing, but it's like, you know that they'll enjoy it. You could, you know, Man of Medan, you can play couch co-op or whatever. So I think it depends. I think couch co-op games actually are probably on the top of that list.
Actually, that's a good point.
For me.
Yeah.
And stuff like Mario, you can do couch co-op in more recent stuff.
It ties in with
Mario Kart is an obvious choice as well.
For racing, though, like if you have someone who's like,
if you'd like to lose all your friends, you can start with Mario Party.
That's true.
You could start with Mario Kart and do 48 courses in one sitting.
God, who would ever do that?
I believe I won, but I think
we're on a rematch. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway,
I really want to spend another 2.5 hours doing that again.
Because I think for video, I don't know, it's like the whole question. You mentioned like card games and board games. And I feel like for those, there's like an easier, at least for card games. Like for me, when you said like, you know, was the first thing you would hand someone? If I had to hand someone a card, like a board, I don't know. Do we count card games as board games? I kind of do.
Tabletop games.
Uno.
Sure.
I would start with Uno.
That's a good one.
That's a fine choice.
I would agree.
World-renowned video game Uno.
The best video game, Texas Hold'em.
Yikes.
Twister. No, that's great though. Oh man, full body VR Twister? That'd be interesting. Anyway. Anyway. That's the story for a different time.
Does your VR body have collision with the other person's VR body, or do you have to reach out?
Yes,
Clearly,
and all the VR pieces have vibration, so you feel it.
Clearly,
you feel it when you bump into people.
We've entered Ready Player One at this point, so clearly it's full body stimulation.
Basically.
Full body haptic feedback.
So I guess that sums it up.
Matt, what is that Duke behind you? What is his favorite video game?
Duke, come here.
He's so cute.
He is. He's also very large. Hand for scale.
If we had done this at the start of the show, we could have doubled our view count. It's too late
for scale.
Yeah. Put it in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
I'll put him in the thumbnail. Perfect. Oh my god.
Just cut this out.
Yeah, you all right there? Is this early onset Parkinson's or?
Cut the feed.
Anyway, so I think we do have to cut it off there. We have ran quite long here, so
the magic of editing.
Well, it's gonna be a great time. But yeah, do we have any other closing remarks, or are we ready to head out?
I think that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you guys for coming. I had a great time.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, give games that you don't think that you would normally enjoy. Like, listen to someone talk about a game and then try it.
Or five people talk.
Listen to someone who likes the game, explain the game, talk about why they like it, then try it. I would say is probably a very good. That's how I got back into Darkest Dungeon, however briefly I did. Is watch someone play it or listen to someone talk about why they like it and what's cool about it, and then you know what you're looking for. You know what you're in for. If you don't already know what those things are.
If a game interests you, look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Do something. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Thank you guys for coming.
Unsolicited advice.